Welcome back to the channel, Coins Collector everyone. If you're a coin collector, treasure hunter, or just someone who loves a good story about rare finds that are hiding in plain sight, then you're in for a real treat today. We're diving deep into one of the most fascinating and valuable pennies ever discovered, the 1988 Lincoln cent, also known as the Liberty 1 cent from that year. What makes this humble-looking coin, a piece that was meant to be just 1 cent in face value, suddenly worth upwards of $233,000 on the collector's market? How did something so ordinary, something that could have passed through your hands a dozen times unnoticed, end up becoming a legendary piece of American numismatic history? Stick around because we're going to take a long, detailed journey into the world of mint errors, hidden details, misunderstood variations, and the compelling reasons behind the massive price tag attached to certain 1988 Lincoln cents. We're going to explore what makes this coin so unique, how these types of errors happen, what to look for if you think you might have one in your possession, and why certain variations are worth thousands, even hundreds of thousands, of dollars. So, what's the story behind this coin that was mass-produced like millions of others, and how did it end up being one of the most sought-after modern pennies in American coin collecting? The 1988 Lincoln cent, at first glance, looks just like any other penny you've probably seen or used in your lifetime. It has the familiar profile of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, or head side, with the word Liberty to his left, the date, 1988, to the right, and the mint mark just below the date. On the reverse side is the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had been used since 1959 to commemorate Lincoln's legacy. With over 6 billion Lincoln cents minted that year across the Philadelphia and Denver mints, it's not hard to see why these coins are incredibly common in appearance and distribution, but buried among those billions are a small handful of extraordinary coins, pennies that were struck in error or with transitional die varieties. In the world of coin collecting, especially U.S. coin collecting, transitional errors are a big deal. These occur when a coin is minted using dies, the stamps that press the designs onto blank coins, from different years or with incorrect design elements. And in the case of the 1988 Lincoln cent, one specific type of transitional error has blown away collectors and appraisers alike. We're talking about the 1988 Lincoln cent with a reverse that actually belongs to the 1989 design. This isn't a typo or confusion, it's an actual blending of elements from two different years due to a mistake at the U.S. Mint. And it's this exact error that turns a basic penny into a $250,000 artifact. Let's break this down in a bit more detail. Most 1988 Lincoln cents were produced with what's known as the RDV-001 reverse design. This refers to the reverse design variety that was standard for the time. However, in 1989, a subtle change was made to the Lincoln Memorial reverse design. Specifically, the designers updated the style of the initials, FG, which stand for Frank Gasparo, the designer of the Lincoln Memorial reverse. These initials are located to the right of the base of the memorial on the coin. In 1988, those initials appear further away from the base and have a particular look. But starting in 1989, the initials were moved closer to the base of the memorial and slightly reshaped. So how did some 1988 cents end up being struck with the 1989 reverse? Simple, the mint used a reverse die from 1989 prematurely on a few 1988 penny productions. This is now known as the 1988 Lincoln cent with the 1989 reverse, or the RDV-006 reverse on a 1988 obverse. It may sound like a small difference, just a shift in the placement and style of some tiny initials, but in the world of coin errors, this kind of transitional die variety is pure gold. And it gets even more interesting when we factor in how rare this error is. Experts estimate that only a tiny number of these coins escaped into circulation before the mistake was noticed or corrected, making them extremely scarce and immensely valuable to collectors, but that's not the only reason this coin is so valuable. There's also the matter of mint mark variations and mistakes. In 1988, both the Philadelphia and Denver mints produced Lincoln cents. Philadelphia coins bear no mint mark, while Denver coins have a small d below the date. But as with the reverse design error, there have been discovered some fascinating inconsistencies in the mint mark application. During the late 1980s, mint marks were still being manually punched into the dies used to strike coins. This manual process opened the door to a range of mint mark anomalies, including misplaced marks, double-punched marks, and even repunched mint marks. These mistakes are like hidden Easter eggs to coin collectors, and when combined with a transitional reverse design, the result is nothing short of spectacular. A 1988 D Lincoln cent with the RDV 006 reverse is one of the most prized finds. And guess what? That $233,000 price tag? That's not just a hypothetical value. It's a real figure based on actual transactions and auction sales in the high-end numismatic market. So now you're probably wondering, how do you know if you have one of these rare coins? The first step is to look at the reverse side of your 1988 penny. Pay close attention to the initials, FG, near the right side of the Lincoln Memorial. If they appear closer to the base of the memorial and have a more stylized, modern look, the same as what would be found on a 1989 penny, then you might just have one of these rare transitional errors, but spotting the reverse design alone isn't enough. You also need to consider the mint mark. A 1988 D penny with the 1989 reverse is the rarest combination, and there have only been a handful verified in the entire country. Experts use high-powered magnification and comparisons to known varieties to confirm the authenticity of these coins. The differences can be very subtle, which is why third-party grading services like PCGS and NGC are so critical in verifying and certifying these valuable pieces. Beyond the transitional reverse and mint mark anomalies, collectors have also found other varieties and errors in 1988 Lincoln cents, including off-center strikes, die cracks, cuds, where parts of the die break off, creating raised blobs on the coin, and even double dies. While these may not be worth hundreds of thousands individually, they can still fetch a decent sum depending on the severity and clarity of the error. Now, let's talk about the broader context of the coin market and why coins like the 1988 transitional cent have gained so much value. In general, the coin collecting market puts a premium on scarcity, historical significance, and error types that are hard to replicate. Transitional errors are especially prized because they're accidental time capsules. They represent moments when old and new designs overlapped due to human or mechanical oversight. Collectors are always on the lookout for the next big discovery. Sometimes, coins like the 1988 RDV 006 weren't even recognized until years after they were released. It took the trained eyes of dedicated numismatists to spot these subtle differences, catalog them, and bring them to the attention of grading organizations. Once word spreads that a particular error is confirmed and rare, prices skyrocket. And because the 1988 transitional reverse was discovered relatively recently in numismatic terms, interest in it continues to grow. So here's the part where things get really exciting for everyday people. Because this error was circulated and not just a prototype or special edition coin, it means that some of these incredibly valuable pennies could still be out there in the wild. They could be sitting in your change jar, in an old piggy bank, or even in your pocket right now. It's not just about having an old coin, it's about knowing what to look for, identifying the signs of rarity, and being aware that something that looks ordinary might just be extraordinary. Coin roll hunters, those who search through rolls of pennies from banks, are especially enthusiastic about this particular error. Stories continue to pop up online from individuals who found rare 1988 cents in bank rolls or in pocket change. The thrill of discovering a coin that turns out to be worth thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars, is what keeps so many collectors engaged in the hobby. Today, we're diving into one of the most captivating and mysterious stories in the world of coin collecting, the 1989 D Lincoln cent. Yes, we're talking about a penny. A coin that was minted with a face value of just 1 cent, yet under certain conditions, this tiny piece of copper-plated zinc could be worth up to $213,000. That's right, $213,000 for a coin most people wouldn't think twice about if they saw it lying on the sidewalk. Now, you may be asking yourself, how can a 1-cent coin possibly be worth that much money? The answer lies in a fascinating combination of factors: rare minting errors, unusual die variations, and the kinds of tiny yet significant mistakes that coin collectors obsess over. The 1989 D penny is an outstanding example of how the smallest details can turn a common coin into a valuable collector's item. It's a story filled with quirks, human oversight, and the unpredictability of the U.S. Mint's coin production process. First, let's talk about the context. The 1989 Lincoln cent was minted during a time when the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies every year. In fact, in 1989 alone, over 7.2 billion pennies were struck at the Denver Mint. That's what the D in 1989 D stands for. With such a massive number of coins being produced, it's almost inevitable that some anomalies would slip through. But what's surprising is how rare and specific these errors were, and how certain combinations of these anomalies make the 1989 D penny stand out from the rest. At first glance, the 1989 D penny looks pretty ordinary. It features the familiar image of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. The obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, has remained largely unchanged since its debut in 1909, except for the occasional adjustments to the date, mint mark, and composition. But if you examine a certain 1989 D penny more closely, especially under magnification, you may start to see some very unusual features that make this coin extremely rare and highly sought after. One of the key reasons the 1989 D penny has garnered such an astronomical value is due to a minting error involving the mint mark itself. Normally, in modern coin production, the mint mark, which tells you where the coin was minted, is added to the die using computerized technology. However, for many years, the mint mark was hand-punched into the die by a U.S. Mint employee. This hand-punching method was phased out in the late 1980s, but during the transitional period, some errors occurred. One of the most famous of these is the 1989 D Lincoln cent struck with a mint mark error that led to an incredible numismatic discovery. Some 1989 D pennies exhibit a phenomenon known as a transition error. What does that mean? In this case, the error involves the use of a proof die, a die intended for high-quality, specially struck coins, being accidentally used for a regular circulation strike. Proof coins are typically struck with greater detail and on specially prepared planchets. They are not intended for general circulation and are usually minted in small quantities for collectors. So when a proof die is mistakenly used to strike regular coins, the result is a coin with an unusually sharp, highly detailed image, but struck on a regular planchet and released into circulation like any ordinary coin. Now here's where it gets especially interesting. A specific 1989 D Lincoln cent was discovered to have been struck using a proof die originally meant for the San Francisco Mint. That's right, a die from the San Francisco Mint, identified by an S mint mark, was somehow used at the Denver Mint, which uses a D mint mark. What this means is that the coin's obverse die, originally created for use in producing proof coins in San Francisco, was paired with a Denver reverse die and then struck for regular circulation. That's a major breach in protocol and a fascinating error that has left numismatists both stunned and excited. The presence of the D mint mark on a coin that was struck with a die intended for S mint coins makes this error a true hybrid, something that should not exist under standard minting practices. When this error coin was discovered, it immediately attracted intense interest from collectors and experts alike. Because it was a unique error, and because of the sheer improbability of such a mistake happening, its value skyrocketed. One of these error coins ended up selling at auction for a staggering $213,000. But that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the potential value of the 1989 D Lincoln cent. Other varieties and anomalies also contribute to the buzz surrounding this coin. For example, some 1989 D cents have been found with double dies. That's when the coin's design appears slightly doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process. Double dies are highly collectible and can dramatically increase a coin's value depending on how prominent the doubling is and how well preserved the coin remains. Additionally, there are known examples of 1989 D pennies with off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, and other kinds of striking errors. These mistakes often occur during the high-speed, high-pressure coin production process. Coins are fed into the press at a rapid pace, and occasionally they don't line up perfectly or are struck when the dies are misaligned. While these kinds of errors are not unique to the 1989 D penny, they add another layer of intrigue and potential value to coins from this particular year and mint. One aspect that particularly fascinates collectors is the idea that these error coins are hiding in plain sight. Because billions of 1989 pennies were produced, and many are still circulating today, it's entirely possible that a valuable error coin is sitting unnoticed in someone's change jar, forgotten in a drawer, or lying on the ground. That sense of mystery and possibility fuels the excitement. You don't need to spend a fortune to start collecting, you just need to pay close attention to the coins you come across every day. Coin grading also plays a crucial role in determining the value of a 1989 D penny. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with higher numbers indicating better condition and less wear. A mint state coin, one that hasn't been circulated and still has its original luster, can fetch a much higher price than a well-worn example, even if both exhibit the same error. The record-setting $213,000 sale was for a coin graded MS-67, meaning it was in nearly perfect condition. A similar error in a lower grade might still be valuable, but the pristine condition helped drive that particular coin's value into six figures. Collectors and experts recommend using tools like a loupe or microscope to inspect pennies from 1989, especially those with the D mint mark, to look for unusual features. Things to watch out for include anomalies in the mint mark itself, doubling of the date or letters, unexpected die marks, or signs that the coin was struck with unusually detailed devices that hint at the use of a proof die. Comparing known examples of rare 1989 D error coins with regular circulation strikes can help sharpen your eye and give you a sense of what to look for. What makes all of this even more compelling is the fact that new discoveries are still being made. Every year, collectors report finding previously undocumented errors in older coins, and the 1989 D Lincoln cent continues to surprise. In fact, the more people become aware of the possibility that valuable variations exist, the more attention is paid to these coins. That increased scrutiny can lead to new finds, driving up demand and value even further. Of course, not every 1989 D penny is worth a fortune. Most are worth exactly 1 cent. But the chance that you could stumble upon a valuable error, maybe even one that hasn't been cataloged yet, makes coin hunting such an addictive and exciting hobby. For some, it's like a modern-day treasure hunt. You don't need a metal detector, a shovel, or a map. Just a handful of spare change and a willingness to look a little closer, and let's not forget about the historical context. Coins are tiny time capsules. They reflect the technology, design aesthetics, and economic realities of the era in which they were produced. A 1989 D penny is part of a larger story, one that includes the shift away from copper coins, the transition to more automated minting processes, and the continued use of designs that have graced U.S. currency for generations. When an error coin like the $213,000 example appears, it disrupts that continuity in a fascinating way. It's like a wrinkle in time, a mistake that accidentally made something even more special and valuable than it was ever intended to be.